Games media is at it again. They're now trying to downplay the success of Clair Obscur whilst completely contradicting everything they themselves have been saying for months. For months now, every gaming news site ran that feel-good narrative. A plucky indie team of 30 developers makes an RPG that rivals the big boys. David versus Goliath, the little guy was winning. Then Geoff Keighley repeated the exact same story at Summer Game Fest this weekend, and suddenly it's factually incorrect. It's harmful to workers. It needs urgent correction. So for those living under a rock, Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is a turn-based RPG from French studio Sandfall Interactive. It's Final Fantasy meets Belle Epoque France, proper JRPG mechanics, beautiful art direction, actual writing that doesn't insult your intelligence, and it's brilliant. Potential game of the year, over 3 million copies sold, the kind of RPG we've been begging publishers to make for years. The 30-person dev team story was absolutely everywhere. Every preview, every interview, every feel-good industry piece, a small French studio taking on the RPG giants with just 30 people. Gaming press loved it. It was the perfect underdog narrative. Why? Because David versus Goliath gets clicks. But here's the thing about David and Goliath stories, they're only useful when David stays small. When David actually wins, when David starts threatening Goliath's territory, that's when the story becomes a problem. Clair Obscur didn't just succeed, it succeeded too well. It proved that maybe we don't need 500 people and $250 million budget to make a proper, solid RPG. Maybe the bloated AAA model isn't inevitable, and that's dangerous thinking. So yeah, Summer Game Fest happened. Geoff Keighley calls Clair Obscur a monumental achievement made by a team of under 30 developers. He's literally repeating what gaming press have been saying for months. The official narrative, the story they built. But within hours, the same outlets are writing correction pieces. PC Gamer calls it factually incorrect, dangerous mythology that needs urgent debunking. This is the same PC Gamer that ran multiple articles about the 30-person team. They quoted it, they celebrated it, but now when Keighley repeats their own reporting on the biggest stage in modern gaming, it's suddenly harmful misinformation. Games Radar 2 are now calling the team size discourse problematic, right after months of running features about a small team achieving big things. And sure, Clair Obscur did have multiple contractors working on it. Dozens of Korean animators, Polish QA teams, voice actors, localizers, all true. All standard industry practice for literally every game ever made in the last decade. But now it's all about urgent worker advocacy. We can't let this mythology stand. Think of the overseas contractors being erased from history. Where were these hand-wringing pieces when the game launched? When the 30-person story was useful for clicks? Yeah, because that's when it was inspiring, and now it's just a dangerous precedent. Because that's what this really is. The moment an indie success story gets too successful, it becomes a threat that needs managing. The timing tells you everything. Clair Obscur is being spoken about as Game of the Year, millions in sales, peak industry visibility, and that's when the 30-person narrative suddenly becomes problematic. And there's no denying the contractor angle is real, but it's standard industry practice. Every game uses external teams. Cyberpunk 2077 had hundreds of contractors. The Witcher 3 used Polish, Ukrainian, and Indian studios. God of War credits voice actors, mocap artists, QA teams across multiple countries. But we don't write pieces about how misleading it is to say that Santa Monica Studio made God of War. When Metallica goes on tour, we don't credit the sound engineer, the lighting technician, and the merch stand operator. We credit the band. It's the framing that's everything here. It's not deceit, it's how we talk about creative work. But suddenly, when an indie threatens the established order, every contractor becomes evidence of misleading marketing. Credit where it's due though, at least they're consistent. This is exactly the same as what happened to Baldur's Gate 3. If you remember, Larian were originally the underdog, Divinity Original Sin 2 got them noticed, Baldur's Gate 3 made them unstoppable. And right before launch and after, developers started writing threads about how BG3 shouldn't raise the standards for RPGs. It's the same pattern, the same excuses. The moment an indie threatens the established order, industry figures come out to manage those expectations. This is an anomaly, they said, and don't expect this from any other developer. It's funny how we never see those pieces when AAA games fail spectacularly. No worker advocacy pieces when Cyberpunk launched, broken despite a team of thousands. But when indies succeed, it's time to pump the brakes. Whoa, we can't let people think this is replicable. The only thing that changed was Clair Obscur got too successful to be useful as a feel-good story. When your underdog narrative starts making AAA look bloated and unnecessary, necessary, it's time to find problems with the underdog. This isn't just media hypocrisy, it's conditioning. The whole point is keeping players stupid, brainwashed into believing quality requires massive budgets and 500-person teams, that Clair Obscur and Baldur's Gate 3 and many others are impossible anomalies, not proof that most AAA development is bloated waste. Because if people realise you can make brilliant games with focused teams and reasonable budgets, that threatens everything. Live service models, quarterly content drops, season passes for unfinished games. The entire revenue model falls apart when players expect actual value. So when an indie gets too successful, the story has to change. We can't let people think this can happen again. Can't let them realise that most AAA problems are self-inflicted. But the knock-on effect is real. Indie developers see what happened to Larian, to Sandfall, and they learn. Don't highlight your small team. Don't make it sound too easy, because the moment you succeed, you become the problem that needs managing. It creates risk before the game even launches. People stop seeing the game for what it is. They're analysing the backstories, judging the team sizes, missing the actual quality because they're caught up in manufactured drama about marketing honesty. And we, the players, just get conditioned to expect less, told that polished, complete games at launch are unrealistic expectations, that contractor transparency is some urgent moral issue, but launching broken games for 70, 80 quid is just normal business. This is gaming media protecting their advertising revenue. AAA publishers buy ads, indie developers don't. It's as simple as that. So when EA spends millions on marketing campaigns, you don't see PC Gamer writing pieces about misleading team-sized narratives. When Ubisoft credits 2,000 people but only mentions the core Montreal team in interviews, that's just how business works. But when Sandfall Interactive uses standard contractor practices, well, it's time to fact-check the success story. Time to find problems with David before he gets too big for his boots. And the pattern repeats because it works. Celebrate the underdog until they threaten the established order, then find reasons why they don't count. PC Gamer admits they quoted this claim themselves, but somehow it's Keighley's fault for believing gaming journalism. Mike Futter, you've probably never heard of him, I haven't, but he's made a few forgettable games, called it a dangerous path we're walking. Dangerous for who though exactly? Dangerous for the narrative that AAA is the only way to make quality games, that's who. But you know what's actually dangerous? Conditioning players to expect broken games at launch, teaching them that quality requires $250 million budgets and 5-year development cycles, making them think that Clair Obscur and Baldur's Gate 3 are impossible flukes instead of proof that focused development works. And yes, before you kick off in the comments, I know contractors exist, I know voice actors and QA teams and localizers contributed to Clair Obscur, but that's standard practice. Every game uses external teams. The point isn't contractor transparency, it's about when that transparency suddenly gets spun like it's some kind of conspiracy. And the pattern will continue. Next indie breakout that gets too successful will get the same treatment. Different excuse, same results. PC Gamer and Games Radar won't address getting caught red-handed, they never do. They'll just move on to the next story, pretend this never happened. Gaming media accountability is a myth. But the most important thing is none of this changes what Clair Obscur actually is. A brilliant game. The writing doesn't insult your intelligence, the world design actually makes sense, the combat feels meaningful and fun, everything you want from a proper RPG. Play it, judge it for what it is, not the manufactured drama around how it got made. The game deserves better than becoming a case study in media hypocrisy, but sadly, that's where we are. Thanks for watching, I'll see you in the next one.